Hello, this is Towgunner, and I just wanted to make a brief introduction video to highlight some of the key things that, to just tell you a little bit about myself and what to expect from this channel. Credit to Quintus and Roosh over Return of the Kings for doing something that's been on the tip of my tongue for a very long time, and that is defining neo-masculinity. Thank you again very much for that. That's a much needed step forward for us to finally put and describe in detail exactly what our ethos is. And so with that, we'll start by saying that this is a channel that is dedicated to neo-masculinity. I am absolutely not progressive. I reject progressivism whole cloth. I think it is a toxic cancer on society, and I believe that if we really want to progress, we need to jettison this nasty ideology, and we need to do it like yesterday. And why is that? When you examine progressivism, when you peel back that appealing veneer of all the wonderful platitudes of equality and of eradicating discrimination and everybody getting along in coexistence. No, it's a very, very fragile veneer. It peels very easy. And when you do, what you find is an ideology an edifice that should not stand. Its foundation is riddled with holes, and primarily it's hypocritical. It's incoherent. It's conformist. And lastly, it is hateful. And that particularly those that are kind of transgressing this path, might find that hard to believe because the narrative has firmly projected the word hate onto one side of the political spectrum and one political group. But you have to, how you peel back this veneer is you have to observe and examine these people's behaviors and actions. I can't emphasize that enough because that's where you'll start to see all the things I just mentioned previously come to bubble to the surface really quickly, and you cannot deny it. And perfect example, as we all know, if you look at their commentary, if you just read their pieces within their whatever left-wing rag you want to call it, even things that have more of a tradition like the New York Times, you'll see something that can only be textbook hate. And for those people who frequent the neo-masculine sites, we know it all too well. And it's all bullshit. Period. It relies on coercion and social engineering. Okay, and if you have to do that, then you're not being entirely upfront with people. And you see, progressivism sells that, or at least that's what they used in order to deconstruct and destroy the previous order. Well, we're going to be more transparent and open. That's not true. If you have to rely on coercion and social engineering, then you're not being upfront. And if you can't be upfront with me, how can I fucking trust you? And you know something? I think I'll finish off by saying this. Probably one of the biggest reasons why I'm not a progressive is because I've taken the time to look more deeply into and to hear and listen to what exactly these people are actually saying, and to say, hey, you know what? There seems to be a trajectory. There seems to be some dots that are connecting, that are leading in a certain direction. Ergo, there seems to be an end state in mind for these people. And they always tend to be the most radical of them. And it just goes to show, or it follows rather, that progressivism also, the tail that wags that dog is the radicals. And that's pretty much true for any sort of political movement. That aside, I mean, consider things for a second. Have you ever actually given thought as to where feminism actually leads to? It's all right there in the open. I mean, the most extreme examples is they're going to call for the death of all men. But in so many ways, you could actually argue that it's for the open segregation of sex between men and women. I mean, We seem to be drifting apart ever more and more. They certainly have done their part in destroying the nuclear family and the concept of a traditional marriage where men and women come together and work in harmony. Same thing goes with homosexualism. Have you gone down that rabbit hole? How would you like to be pansexual? I don't want to be pansexual. I don't want to be segregated from women, right? But because they use coercion and social engineering, if we don't stand and do something about this, we will. And it's not necessarily going to be like people like us in the neo-masculine community, which pretty much is the people who are most perceptive to these sorts of things. We're talking about the idiots and the conformists of the world. Again, conformity is one of the things that I don't like about progressivism, in which the ideology relies on. Well, it relies on it because they use trends and fads and what's cool in the media in order to push their agenda. And whereas some Joe or Jill six-pack are going to tune in or listen to their favorite artist or what have you, with the intention of being entertained, in reality, they're being pushed along a pathway. And it's leading to these ridiculous places. And we're seeing it right now. We're seeing it with all of a sudden, here we go, we got another victim class. Transsexuality. You cannot be, this is utterly ridiculous. When these people, again, hypocrites, incoherent, right? This is a great example of it. How could you, wait a second here. So you are the side of the political spectrum which goes out there and holds the banner that we stand side by side with science. And they do that mostly because they can't stand religion. But that being said, okay, but hello, I could give you a microscope. We can create a hypothesis. We could take the transsexual hypothesis, and I could show you through a microscope why that is just not the case whatsoever. Why the more likely conclusion is that these people are just confused. An even more likely conclusion off of that, once you add it into the entire progressive modus operandi, is that you just want to create another grievance class. So it can suck more off of the state, so you can have more leverage to shame, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the things why I dislike progressivism. And lastly, I mean, I'm going to talk a lot about feminism here. The Atlantic, which definitely is a progressive left-wing rag, but that stupid fucking magazine still graces the shelves around the country and this world in a ultra politically correct, where the slightest offense, if I just say zag, for instance, someone might construe that as fag, and I'll be blacklisted. I'll have the scarlet letter. And it's happened. Yet on the front page, the Atlantic, a few years ago, mind you, flippantly said, "Are men inferior?" And yeah, I grant them, they put a little question mark, but is it not rhetorical? When we look at feminism, when we listen to the vitriol, they hate us. So we know what the answer to that question is. To me, it's you don't need to. It should just be a period. And that's my biggest thing. And that's, are you going to put up with that? Are you going to be made into an inferior class? Because if we go and we examine history, those that are here in this community are insightful enough to do this. What has happened when we have assigned certain groups of people as inferior in the past? Riddle me that. Right? It's part of a dehumanizing process, right? Has it not happened before with African Americans? Hasn't it happened before with Jews? Hasn't it happened before with a number of different aggrieved groups that happen to make up the Big Ten of progressivism? Hypocrites, incoherence, hateful, right? So that's my quick introduction. I'll be making more videos because now's the time to really put our feet down and make a stand. Because if we don't, these people are just going to take more and more and more. Thank you.